So back in 2017, I joined forces with my really good friend Ryan, who had built a company called Escape Climbing. He had been building it, I think, since he was in college. Actually, it was his senior thesis as a graphic design major, which is actually really funny. I think it was like in 2006 or 2007. He was going to school as a design major, a graphic designer, and for this senior thesis, he had to design a company, a logo, and like all this accoutrement that comes along with that. Well, rewind a couple years even before that, when he was in high school, he's just this Wisconsin boy living out in the country, and he was into rock climbing. But in Wisconsin, where he was at, there's not a lot of access to climbing gyms. There's not a lot of access to outdoor climbing, and so he lived on a farm and had a lot of land. They had a barn, and he decided that he was just going to go and he's going to build a climbing wall in there himself, and then he would just start making his own climbing holds, because he realized that climbing holds are really expensive. You pay for them by the pound, and because they're made of plastic and they're dense and they need to be pretty robust, that they end up being kind of heavy. Shipping gets to be very expensive, and the holds themselves, designing them, creating them, the whole process, they're just very expensive. So with Ryan, he's just so scrappy. He's like, I can build a climbing wall. So he did in his barn, and it was like 20-30 feet tall. And then he's like, I can make climbing holds as well. So he learned how to make polyurethane holds, and then he would put those on the wall, and he started selling those, I think, a little bit to friends and family on the side. It was like a side hustle. And when I met him in like 2009 or 2008, he had a little website, escapeclimbing.com. He was selling a couple of holds every now and then, and it was just like this fun little side project. He's always been this very entrepreneurial dude. He's a remarkable operator. Like, if he wasn't doing this business, he'd be doing he's always got like 10 coals in the fire, or 10 pokers in the fire. Anyway. Fast forward to 2017, when I moved back to Minnesota, he was, I think at that point, maybe had 2 or 3 employees and was doing maybe $300,000 a year in top line revenue. And he was generally pretty happy with that, because he was really prioritizing work-life balance. He had 2 young kids. He didn't want the business to be like this big, massive thing. He's not money motivated. He wants it to be a fun project, and he wants to be able to serve. That's a big thing for him, is being able to serve the world. And he was realizing, though, in 2017, like, he had 2 choices that he had to make. He could either stay on the same path and kind of continue holding the fort down, and they would continue doing okay, but like, they were never going to be able to invest back into like R&D and really developing cool new projects or products for people. And they were just going to have to be content to kind of like own their own little corner of the internet and, just make their sales. But one of the problems with that is that even if you don't continue growing, you can assume that the marketplace is going to continue growing every single year, right? If you say the S&P grows, 8 to 9% every year, then even if you try to hold steady, then everybody else is going to be improving 8 to 9%. And if you're not growing at least that much, you're going to slowly fall further and further behind. And so there's a very real issue here, which is that it's very hard to stay stagnant and not grow. And he was looking at the situation and he's like, yeah, this isn't sustainable long term, because I'm still having to work so much into the system. And I want to be able to pull out and work more on the business, not so much in the business. And so he came to me. It was right after I'd moved back to Minnesota. I was looking for a new project to help with. And I had just helped my buddies with their climbing gym. And he comes to me and he's like, hey, come help me with this project. Let's explode it. Let's blow it up, take it to the next level. And I was like, this sounds really cool. Sounds fun. So we launched what we called Operation Cannonball. And I explained what that is in a previous podcast, but effectively what it was is we realized that to be able to make the impact that we wanted within the climbing community, we needed to effectively 10x what we were at that point. So about 300,000, we needed to get to about 3 million to be able to have the impact that we thought we could have on the industry. And it's not a very big industry by any means. So like for context, worldwide, like that industry probably maybe does 30 to 40 million dollars. So 3 million would give us a nice little carved out niche within that, like make us a substantial player, but not like the biggest player by any means. And so when we got together and started laying out the roadmap for how we were going to blow up the company and try to start growing, we realized that there's 2 paths. There was the path where you can solve the problem with money, or the path where you can solve things with ingenuity. And yes, you have to find the balance, because in a manufacturing environment, which what this is, there needed to be some investment into the machinery, into the infrastructure to be able to facilitate the growth. And so we spent a lot of money. But there was also so many different areas of the business that we were really, really scrappy. And every time that every instance where we were going to spend money, we would always ask ourselves, is there another way to do this for cheaper, or that we could just do in-house? And time again, just going through that mental exercise forced us to rethink how we were solving the problems. Instead of just throwing cash at it, we were trying to throw our ingenuity at it. And I firmly believe that in most cases, you don't lack for resources, you lack for resourcefulness. And one of the things that we really tried to breed into the culture, into people that we were looking to hire, were what we called MacGyvers, not Batmans. And what we mean by that is, Batman is a billionaire who solves all his problems by throwing money at it. He has this really fancy suit, really fancy car, all these widgets and gadgets, and he can throw the money at it. And that's what, when you hire a lot of people, especially within the engineering world, they're going to come into a manufacturing environment and they just want to throw money at the thing. Like, oh, automate this, get this robotic thing, get this software, all this stuff. They just want to throw money at it. And that will work, but it starts to breed lazy thinking. And when you're lazy with your thinking and you're not safeguarding your resources, no matter how big or small they are, then you will eventually find yourself bloated and hemorrhaging money without even realizing it. Because another one of the core concepts that we believed is that whoever can be trusted with the small things can be entrusted with the big things. So if you can't be entrusted to, pinch every penny or to guard every penny, then I can't trust you to guard the $1 million, right? And so on the converse, or the flip side of hiring a Batman, was we need to hire MacGyvers. And for a lot of you maybe listening to this, you don't have any clue who that is. And MacGyver was a TV show from I think the 80s. A guy with a mullet who he's like a spy or something. He'd go into all these dangerous situations and then he'd get caught, and he'd always have to rescue himself by being really, really resourceful. And sometimes he'd defuse a bomb with bubble gum and a paper clip, and then he would hang glide out of there on a sheet, like a bed sheet or something. I don't know, crazy stuff. Anyway, that's the type of thinking that we needed. We needed at that point to be very, very diligent and good stewards of our capital, and only put it into the places where there was no way for us to MacGyver the solution like that. Money was the only way that was going to solve it. And by doing that, we were able to scale to $1 million in year one. So we over tripled in the first year, and we went from 1 million to 2 million in the second year. So doubling, and then from 2 million to 3 million in year three. So, 33%. So all told, we were able to do that 10x growth within 3 years with that strategy. So I just want to share this with you guys today, because if you're not careful, as you're doing better in your businesses and cash flows coming in, you can start to get bloated, a little bit loosey-goosey with just throwing money at solutions rather than being diligent and asking, is this a necessary expense? Is there a cheaper, better, or more resourceful way to solve the problem? If you do that consistently, then you will not find yourself in a position where your overhead is continually ballooning and you're finding yourself struggling under the weight of expenses. So take this and do what you will with it. I appreciate you guys being here. I'll catch you around these parts tomorrow, but until then, stay hyper-focused, my friends.